What's up, vapors? Thanks for checking out Daily Vape TV. My name is Nick, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Marvn RTA. Why the hell does that remind me of Marvin the Martian every time I say it? Alright guys, so rounding out our series on the coil-master tanks with the biggest of the bunch, this guy right here, the Marvn RTA, with a big shout out and thank you going to coil-master for sending these my way for the purpose of making this video. Let's go ahead and take a look online. The only place I could find them available is coil-master's website, and it's going to be available in two different color options. You have the stainless version and the black version. It's going to run you about 30 bucks with free shipping from coil-master. However, it's going to come straight from China, so it's going to take a couple of weeks to get to you. And with that being said, I'll leave a link right down there in the description below if you guys want to pick one up for yourself. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive down to the close-up view and take a better look at this thing. Alright guys, as you can see here, we've got the Marvn RTA in its original box, so let's quickly take a look around the packaging and then talk about what is inside. So, first and foremost, very minimalistic packaging here, just a basic graphic of the device itself on the front with a bit of the old spot gloss. On the top and bottom we have Marvn, on both sides we have coil-master, and on the back we have some basic information, including the features, specifications, contents, some company information. Marvn RTA, once again, a color indication sticker, mine is stainless steel, another little graphic of the device, and the scratch-off authentication and serial number right there. So what is underneath the cover here? Let's go ahead and take it off and find out. Well, there we go. We have the coil-master lotto thing once again. So if you get one of these things, you get a code and you go to their website and all that good stuff. So there you go. We have a simple little quick start guide thing here. It's in a couple of languages. It is fold out style, but you know, it's tiny, so I'm not going to knock off 5 points for that, I guess. But I always prefer the booklets over these fold out ones. We have some cotton, just some basic Japanese cotton. Nothing to write home about there, but it's nice that they throw that in the box. We have obviously the Marvn RTA itself, as you can see here, and a spare piece of glass if you just so happen to break it. You get an extra one right there. And last but not least, we have our bag of parts. We have one of each O-ring. We have two extra screws. There we go. We have a couple of coils as well, which is a nice touch there. And that's about all she wrote. All right, guys, let's go over the specs. It's 25 millimeters in diameter at the glass and 26 millimeters in diameter overall. It has a 5 mil juice capacity with a funnel-shaped design Delrin drip tip, air-releasing top fill design, dual adjustable airflow control, peak insulated, gold-plated bottom, pin, and base, and it's made of 304 stainless steel. Alright guys, let's go over this thing from top to bottom as we normally do, starting it off with the drip tip here. This is kind of one of those 810 tips that's tall and skinny rather than short and stout, and I like it better that way because your mouth doesn't hit the top cap when you're vaping on it. So there you go. It's a funnel shaped design, so it's wider at the top than on the bottom, as you can see here. Kind of a slight restriction towards the bottom, but it matches with the actual chimney section, which is great. And just to prove that it is in fact 810, we've got our tester tip right here. Let's go ahead and pop that in. Boom, just like that. Not the tightest fit in the world. It is a little bit wobbly, and some of them, if they have a little bit more room on the bottom here, tend to stick out a little bit. So it's not going to work with every single tip you have, but most of them ought to do the job. So there you go. And that's held in there with a single O-ring right up there at the top section. You can see it right on the inside of the lip there. Then you can also see the chimney section bore right down the middle, which matches the bottom part of the wide bore drip tip. On the top cap section, you have this little coil-master engraving right there at the top, and it is kind of got that little kind of notched design, so to speak, so that it's a bit easier to grip onto when you go to take this thing on and off. The threads on this thing are a bit stiff. I'm not sure if it's an O-ring that's causing the issue or what, but yeah, it's just been kind of a pain to get that top cap on and off when it comes time to filling it. And there you can see the fill holes on either side, so it's really easy to fill. Just dump juice in there and it fills up in a matter of a couple of seconds, with another O-ring right there on the chimney just to prevent any sort of leaking. So here we have the rest of the top part of the tank. The glass on it feels nice and solid. Don't feel like I'm going to break it anytime soon. And with that, you do do have an extra one in the box if you just so happen to break it. And then we have the actual kind of chimney section, which is one piece with the top cap right there. You can see the little coil-master engraving right there on that part, and it's got a little bit of a chamfer on the inside there. And here we have the build deck. As you can see, it's got that apocalypse sort of style there. The posts are a little bit higher on the outside than the actual clamp pieces right there, and they're tightened and loosened with these flathead screws right here, which are pretty decent. No complaints about those whatsoever. The only issue that I have with this build deck is that I kind of have to hang it upside down when I put coils in here, just because otherwise those little clamps don't actually loosen up. They're not spring-loaded or anything like that. Then you can see the airflow section right there. Nice wide airflow. No real problems with that whatsoever. Very smooth, and just basically no complaints. So there you can see also the wicking ports right there and there on either side of that airflow hole. A little bit funky shape to them, and it's really difficult to get underneath there to trim off any excess wicking. So you kind of have to get that right before you tuck it in. So you kind of have to just trim it and check it, trim it and check it over and over again a couple of times. But it is a very nice wide kind of wicking section there, so you get plenty of wicking material packed in there. And the threads are pretty decent. A little tiny bit squeaky, but overall not too bad. You can see an O-ring sitting at the bottom there that prevents any leaking at the bottom. And then you have your airflow section, which is fully controllable, all the way open, all the way closed. It does have a nice little stopper there, which prevents it from just spinning randomly. And on the bottom here, you can see it is gold-plated with a gold-plated 510 and pin, and it has a little engraving designed and manufactured by coil-master with the coil-master logo and Marvn engraving right there. So that's about all I've got to talk about in this little close-up section here. Let's go back to the main screen, have a quick vape on this thing, and we'll talk about it some more. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the close-up section of the video. Now let's talk about my personal thoughts about this device, some pros, some cons, and whether or not it's worth purchasing. Starting off today with the pros, and my first pro is that it has a large juice capacity. This thing holds 5 mils of juice, and thank you coil-master for listening, because honestly I feel like that should be standard nowadays, and it really doesn't make that much of a bigger tank. I mean, it is a 26mm max diameter, and it is kind of tall, but at the end of the day I would definitely sacrifice a little bit of size just to hold that much more juice. And with that, it definitely passes the long drive test. I could probably make it about an hour away and then back and still have juice to spare. And my second pro today is the airflow is fairly smooth. Now, it's not the smoothest I've ever vaped on, but it's also not the roughest. It feels pretty natural, although slightly restricted, and I'm talking ever so slightly, just enough to know the difference between vaping on an RDA and an RTA. But with this one here, I feel like it's pretty decent. The noise level on it is fairly low, and that's okay with me. And my third pro for this one is the wide bore chimney and mouthpiece actually makes sense. They actually do something. It's not just for aesthetic reasons. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten an RTA in with a big looking wide bore tip, and the chimney section is no wider than a normal 510, so the wide bore tips on those tanks tend to serve no purpose whatsoever. This one here is actually functional. The bore is a bit wider, and it just makes so much more sense to have a wide bore tip on something that actually is wide bore rather than just put it on there for aesthetic reasons. And my fourth and final pro for this one is it feels well made. Now, personally, I could still tell that it's a made in China sort of device. However, when you're building on it, it's a little bit difficult to tell that because everything just seems to fit really nicely. There's no real janky screws or anything like that. It just feels nice and solid, and I feel like it's going to hold up for a long time. Alright guys, so moving on to the cons. My first con is that the top cap is a bit difficult to get on and off when it comes time to fill this thing. Now, I'm not sure if it's just my device, but personally my threads are fairly smooth, however they're just a bit tight. Now, it could be an O-ring issue, there could be an O-ring that's just kind of rubbing up against the two pieces of metal that's just making it stick a little bit, but I kind of chalk that up to a quality control sort of situation. My second con for this one is it's not the easiest to build or wick. Now, when it comes time to build this thing, it does have the apocalypse style build deck, which is great. However, they could have made our lives a lot easier by adding a spring-loaded system in there so that it pushes up on the clamps whenever you're building on it, and honestly, that just kind of makes it that much more difficult. I have to do this sort of apocalypse-style building technique where I hang it upside down and slot my coils in there. But with that, as far as the wicking is concerned, it's got those kind of oblong, weird-shaped wicking ports, and that definitely makes it a challenge when it comes time to wicking this thing, just because the wicks don't really want to form into that shape, so you kind of have to tuck wicking into every little corner there and just make sure it's the right length, because it's very difficult to get your scissors up underneath there and trim off any excess. And my final con for this device is definitely a subjective opinion of my own. I just feel like the gold accent is totally unnecessary. It serves no purpose, and in my opinion, it definitely looks tacky. So I'm not sure if that's going to be universal across the board. I'm sure some people will like that, but personally, I just could have done without it. So at the end of the day, is this device worth purchasing? Would I go out of my way to pick one of these up if I didn't get this one in for a review? And I'm kind of on the fence about this one. Honestly, there's a lot of features on it that I do like, but I really wish they would improve other features, and it just kind of makes one kind of halfway decent device. It's only $30, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick one up and just play around with it. However, I really want them to develop this system further. Hopefully there's a Marvn V2 or something like that, with a few added features that I was really looking for out of this device here. But with that, it's not a bad device to play around with. If you want to pick one up for yourself, I'll leave links right down there in the description below. So that about does it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget to click that notification bell right next to the subscribe button if you want to be alerted whenever I upload videos. Don't forget to also leave me some comments in the box below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Marvn or anything else you guys want to discuss down there. Check out the advocacy and my social media links right down there in the description below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and as always, vape on.